Okay, I traced my design and I was just going over it just so I could see those lines darker. You don't have to. It's really up to you what you want to do. All of the pencil will burn out. So if you decide that, let's say you don't want these lines in here and you want to erase them, you can, okay? As long as you just don't paint it in, you're fine. Okay, when you're starting to paint, you're going to need to use glaze that's in the bottles, and you need your clean palette. So you should have a clean palette before you start. So if your palette is not clean, you have to go and wash it in the sink. Remember that you have to soak it in the tub overnight. The next day you come back, you get it out of the tub, use those green scrubby sponges to get off all the paint. You don't want any of the acrylic paint to be mixed in with your glaze, because I don't know what the result will be. The acrylic paint will burn out, but it might make your glaze super uneven. Okay, when using the glaze, okay, make sure that it's always mixed up. We're going to just use a little bit of glaze, but you want probably a lot of colors. That's why we're not going to use those glaze cups for right now. And you're going to squeeze just a little glaze, just a tiny bit, like a nickel size amount. You don't want a lot of glaze. The other thing is really make sure it's mixed up super well, or you're just going to get the water and you're not going to get the color. Don't get colors that you don't want, obviously, and that's why we're only getting a little bit of glaze, because you can always go back and get more glaze, but only get about this much glaze to start with. I'm using these new brushes. They're the brushes used for acrylic, but because they were a lot smaller than the glaze brushes we normally use, I thought for painting tiny designs it would be better. So you're going to make sure you have some water to rinse out your brush before dipping it in a new color, okay? Make sure there's not a lot of water on your brush, okay? That's why I got paper towels. And let's say I want to start with my violet here, my purple, okay? So I'm gonna start painting in. If you make a mistake with glaze, it depends on when you make the mistake. Let's say right now, I paint over that spot that I wanted to be white. All I have to do is just rinse out my brush, just have some water on my brush. I'm going to dissolve that glaze right off that spot, okay? And then wipe off my brush and continue painting. So if you go outside the line, you can do the same thing. Now, sometimes when I already have glaze in a spot, let's say I'm painting the white and then it gets on top of the purple, I just take my fingernail and scratch it off and then repair both sides, the white and the purple. When painting, remember that you want to turn your tile, because you always want your brush facing the area that you don't want to paint over. So that little skinny area, I'm going to turn my tile and I'm going to point my brush into that little area so that I can paint more carefully. You can also pick up your tile like this. I do this a lot, okay, to try to get into areas. So you're going to paint in the whole part that you want the same color. And you'll see how some areas are lighter and darker, and that's because I have different thicknesses of glaze in that spot. Okay, I have all of the areas that I want the same violet color. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to repaint a second coat. So you have to keep track of how many coats you have on here. That's why I like to paint the whole area first, so that when I paint again, I can see where it's darker and know I've already painted that area. And you want 3 coats so that it's very, very bright and solid. You can see that that little bit of glaze that I have will cover all of this 3 times. So that's why you don't need a lot of glaze. But you do want to keep enough glaze on your brush so that it keeps flowing. You see how often I have to dip it in? You don't want to get your glaze and try to spread it out very thin, because that'll just make your glaze too thin. Just wanted to show some examples of glaze that was too thin. So the black comes out pretty nice and solid, but you can see where the red is uneven. And then this one, you can see this was only 1 layer of glaze and it's very uneven. So that's why you want to make it nice and solid and bright. Okay, a couple of other tips for using glaze. You can ombre, and how I'm going to do that is use a little sponge, and I wet it first and then squeeze out as much water as I can. Okay, I'm going to wipe some of this glaze on there. I can also just dip it right into this jar. Just be careful not to get the glaze around the edge, okay? And then don't get too much glaze on your sponge, okay? And I can dab it, and I know it's going over my flower, but remember, I can get that off. Okay, so I'm going to start with the light aqua. Just around the middle part. Okay, I'm going to wash up my sponge, squeeze it out, dry it off. Then I'm going to use the bright aqua. Just get that little bit, that edge in there. Okay, I'm going to dab that on with a sponge. Now, can you blend colors with brush? Absolutely. Can you mix colors on your palette? Yes, you can. I can't guarantee what colors come out mixed or what shade you're trying to get, but you can mix the colors. Just mix them on the plastic palette though, don't use the paper palette. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to use my light aqua again. Remember that you have to have many coats on here. So I'm going to go back and tap in my light aqua again. And you keep doing this until you have your 3 layers on there of color. And until you're happy with the way that it blended out. Okay? Alright, and then to get back your flower, remember you're going to wash out a brush in clean water, and you're going to take this glaze off. So you're going to use a paper towel, okay, and keep washing your brush, getting clean water on there, getting the glaze off, just like that, wiping your brush, getting clean water. So that, oops, dipped in the wrong thing. So that you can then paint whatever other objects that are not ombre in a different color, right?